Chapter 2 Aryes. Far to the west of Sumer, across the expanse of the Atlantic, the nation of Amazonia lay cloaked in lush jungles and crowned by the towering Andes. Within the Emerald Realm, mighty rivers carved a tapestry of life through the land, and cities nestled beneath forest canopies thrived in harmony with nature. Rich with history and lore, Amazonia's people wielded wisdom drawn from both earth and sky. Yet even they held secrets buried deep beneath the soil. These secrets were shadows of an older world that perished long before the current, golden age of humankind. Aryes, a fearless explorer and scholar, had yearned to walk among these jungles in pursuit of ancient truths. Having devoted his adult life to the Brotherhood of the Serpent, an Egyptian order renowned for its rigorous discipline in both philosophical and physical arts, he was dispatched to Amazonia to lend his expertise. The Brotherhood often served as envoys within the Assembly of Eternal Nations, a global council that had upheld peace for centuries. Thus Aryes found himself at the forefront of a diplomatic venture, bridging three of the world's most influential realms together in a shared cause. A large wooden trade ship, carrying only a skeleton crew, now carried him swiftly across the Atlantic's boundless waters. Its bow rocked forward and back, cleaving through the waves with a steady rhythm. After weeks at sea, Aryes climbed to the top deck, gripping the rails as he ascended the steep steps. A gentle breeze ruffled his hair, and from that vantage he glimpsed an endless coastline, dark jungles running inland, with mountains emerging in the distance. To the left, a volcano released ashen plumes into the sky, a portent of danger awaiting his arrival. Aryes stepped up into the wheelhouse, where the ship's captain stood at the helm. The man barely shifted his gaze from the surging waves. "The Atlantic's unkind this season," the captain muttered. "I appreciate your efforts, Captain Theron," Aryes replied, sliding the door shut behind him. "I realise it is a gruelling journey." The captain, clad in Atlantean seaman attire, offered a curt nod. "Aye, I've word from the fleet that they follow a day behind. They'll anchor offshore in case your plan fails. There's hope, at least some civilians can be evacuated until this volcano quiets." Aryes cast a grave look toward the window, where Olympus Mons loomed. "It has been restless for months. The moment we land, we'll head straight for its peak. Amazonia's envoys will guide me." Captain Theron's eyes flicked toward a discreet crate stowed in the corner. "That conductor, are you certain it'll work?" Aryes spared a glance at the box. "It has served us before on smaller volcanoes, but never on one this immense." He paused, measuring his words. "Still, it is the best chance we have." The captain adjusted course. Aryes bowed his head in thanks, then descended to the deck, leaving the captain to wrestle with the final miles to port. Their vessel had been summoned in urgency by Egyptian leadership to halt an eruption of unprecedented scale, and Atlanteans, masters of the Atlantic, had agreed to help. Despite bearing the weighty mantle of a geology and ecology specialist, Aryes found some solace in the knowledge that he would not face this alone. As the ship approached Corubana, a moderately sized port city that marked Amazonia's eastern gateway, Aryes caught a glimpse of the region's vivid character. Colourful stone buildings, with vines trailing down their walls, hugged the coastline, interspersed with tall statues of gods and mythic figures that spoke to Amazonia's fervent cultural heritage. He wanted to absorb it all. However, with a volcano set to erupt, his purpose did not allow any indulgence. Hastening into the harbour, the ship's crew wasted no time mooring the vessel. Ropes were cast onto the stone docks, securing them with an urgency that matched the unsettled mood of the horizon. "Thank you, Captain," Aryes called as he stepped toward the gangplank. Captain Theron gave a brisk wave. "Thank me once that fiery mountain yields to your device." Aryes clutched his satchel as two sailors lifted the crate down onto the pier. The ground felt strange and solid after weeks at sea, and for a heartbeat he struggled for balance. Then the Amazonian envoy approached, led by a man whose bearing suggested quiet authority. "Aryes?" the man asked. "Yes, that's me." The sailors carefully placed the crate at Aryes' feet, at which point the envoy moved to take custody of it. Their leader offered a respectful bow. "My name is Quan. I command this envoy. We cannot overstate our gratitude for your help in preventing what could be a cataclysm." "We share one world," Aryes answered gently. "I'm glad to assist if it spares your people such devastation." A harsh roar rumbled across the bay, reaching them from the distant volcano. Overhead, a swirl of dark fumes rose higher, thickening the air with an ominous haze. Aryes felt the weight of time's limitation pressing upon them all. "We should move quickly," he urged. "You'll guide me up the safest route to the summit?" Quan nodded. "These men are our best navigators. All are locals, raised with the jungle's hardships. They know the land intimately." "Then lead on," Aryes said, forging his steps beyond the dock and through the milling crowds. Refugees streamed from the city in droves, clutching bundles of possessions or herding loved ones toward boats. The pungent smell of ash grew stronger. Above them, the once blue sky bore a greyish veil, remnants of Olympus Mons' outburst. Now and then, ash fluttered downward, drifting like an eerie snowfall across the tropical setting. "We must outrun that smoke," Aryes warned. "The ash could choke us all if it grows too dense." "Yes," Quan agreed, urging his escort to a waiting cable carriage. "Come, this will carry us uphill." They piled onto the carriage, the crate stowed amid them. A lever was thrown, and with a heavy groan, the cable started pulling them up past the city's rooftop lines. From above, the bright chaos of evacuating crowds told its own grim tale. No one had imagined the volcano's temper would flare so quickly. Smoke thickened ahead of them, blotting the horizon with dark plumes. "Your device," Quan ventured, eyeing the crate. "Do you think it can truly tame Olympus Mons?" Aryes exhaled. "Ether stone conductor, forged from rare metals and crystals, harnessing the Earth's magnetics. It is intended to channel and temper the forces building inside a volcano, letting them bleed off gradually instead of unleashing all at once." "Ingenious," Quan murmured. "If it works." The carriage creaked along its cables. The volcano's silhouette loomed larger, with every yard gained. Another belch of molten fury roiled from its peak, and tremors shook the metal framework beneath their feet. At last they reached the upper docking station, some 100 meters above the jungle floor. Uncertainty shimmered in the stifling air as they disembarked. "There's a road winding up from here," Quan said. "We'll make for the summit on foot." They set out upon a cobblestone path, half buried by settling ash. Veils of soot coated the leaves of coffee plantations and small farms that clung to the volcano's slopes. Aryes felt a pang for the families who had cultivated these fields for generations, many of whom would see their livelihoods destroyed in a single moment. He forced himself to remain focused. Below, Korobana succumbed to a haze of ashfall. Though some fled, many older or infirm residents hunkered in their homes, hoping for salvation that might come too late. The air thickened to a choking swirl of grit. If they failed, the city would be smothered. As they pressed higher, the ground trembled with menacing vigour. Another deep roar tore from Olympus Mons, rattling boulders free from the slopes. "Time is short," Aryes muttered, quickening his pace. "Then let us waste none," Quan agreed, pushing forward. Soon they attained the volcano's crest, where the air turned acrid with sulphur, and the heat emanating from chasms in the rock licked at their lungs. They found a precarious position to place the crate, and Aryes hastily unlatched it. Inside gleamed the etherstone conductor, a cylindrical device half a man's height, etched in swirling Egyptian script, and fitted at the top with a brilliant gemstone. The stone glowed softly, as though alive with latent power. "Help me carry it," Aryes called, beckoning Quan. Together they hoisted the conductor, edging dangerously close to the lip of the crater. Within the volcano, molten lava seethed in the darkness, splashing embers of infernal light against the blackened walls. The rest of the escort, warily stationed farther down the slope, stood helpless, bracing themselves against tremors. "How do we use it?" Quan shouted. His voice was nearly lost to the roaring inferno. "We pull this lever," Aryes demonstrated, "then toss it as close as we can to the centre. The arms will anchor themselves into the rock, draining the pressure. That's the idea anyway." Bracing themselves, Aryes and Quan flung the device over the ledge. It tumbled down. The extended arms on the device scrapped against jagged stone until it lodged at a precarious angle, well shy of the central vent. Aryes peered through a scope, his brow creased with concern. "It is not aligned," he muttered. "It is too far to one side. That might compromise the entire effect." The ether stone began to glow brighter, responding to the volcano's rising fury. The arms sank into rock, siphoning some geothermal force, yet fresh waves of boiling magma churned, threatening to overflow. "It is active," Aryes said, "but it's not capturing the entire build-up. This eruption won't be fully contained." No sooner had he spoken than the volcano let out a spine-chilling bellow, and a savage tremor rocked the slope. One side of the mountain gave way in a fiery blast, hurling molten rock. The men stationed below had no chance to flee. Aryes and Quan flung themselves to the ground. "Up! Get up, Quan!" Aryes insisted, yanking him to his feet. In one devastated instant, their escort had vanished, consumed in the pyroclastic onslaught. Horror twisted Quan's face as he grasped the fate of his men. "The device, it's stabilizing one section, but the other side is lost," Aryes said grimly, gesturing at the gaping new crater. "We must leave, now!" They scrambled down a hazardous ridge, barely staying ahead of a surge of molten debris. All around them, stones cracked and rolled, and jets of steam burst from hidden vents. Across the volcano's raw flanks, glistening lava advanced in unstoppable rivulets toward the jungle far below. Some hours later, at a safer vantage, Aryes paused to study the overall damage. "It worked," he murmured at last, relief and sorrow mingling in his voice. "Partially anyway." The full eruption was halted. Quan's gaze followed the molten flow. "Still the cost," he said hoarsely. Within sight, Korobana was part buried, yet not wholly destroyed. Where the volcanic river lapped into the town, it gradually cooled, stopping short of swallowing everything in its path. Though entire blocks had burned, more remained intact than anyone could have hoped. "You saved many," Quan whispered, his eyes wet with grief for what was lost. "Your device, your knowledge, it spared us from total ruin." Standing together, they watched the last embers of Olympus Mon's anger dissolve into a fading cloud. In the hush that followed, Aryes silently mourned those who perished, yet clung to hope for those who survived. The land and its people would recover, even from this, and though battered and exhausted, Aryes himself found a renewed sense of purpose: to keep searching for ways to shield humanity from the Earth's ferocious might, perhaps to rewrite a future where cataclysms would not extinguish entire cities in their wake.